So quite a few people who are visiting have questions today. Alberto has one or two, and Hung and Hoon have some. Alberto, would you like to start maybe with the dust rag one, because it's...
We don't have any sound here. Any sound? Speak on it?
He's trying to adjust.
Just start again. Or just test it with you.
Yes.
Testing.
Okay, thank you.
Alberto, would you like to start?
I was listening to one tape from India, maybe 2000, and you said maybe it was like a joke, but I like it. You said I came here to pay respect to a dashrag, referring to Sariputta. And I thought that was, at first I thought I couldn't really understand the meaning. Then I looked it up, and of course Sariputta was compared himself to a dashrag. And then I realized that paying respect to a dashrag meant more than paying respect to than just someone who didn't care about anything in the world. And so I thought maybe the dashrag is not so easy to be a dashrag at all. It's, maybe Sariputta can be a dashrag, but not me for sure. It's impossible for ordinary Putujana to be like Sariputta.
Yeah, and how to be dashrag?
Sorry?
How to be dashrag? Is there any way?
By understanding.
Only.
Only.
But Ajarn, it's not only understanding, it seems there has to be a lot of metta also.
But if there is still I am or I have metta, can that be dashrag?
But what I'm saying is not only understanding, there must be metta also.
And also other kusala.
Can one say the main factor in being like a dashrag is the giving up of the idea of self? Because while there's an idea of self, and while there is mana, conceit as well, then these are the obstacles, the hindrances to being like a dashrag, finding oneself so important.
And actually, does one really want to be a dashrag? I just want to.
Just want.
Just like the idea or the fantasy.
And what is the benefit of being a dashrag?
Well, I think the idea is not literally being a dashrag, but rather giving up the sense of self-importance, because a dashrag is very unimportant and very nondescript. So they're saying the idea is giving up the idea that there's any importance to what we think of as a self.
As long as one still have the idea of self, that cannot be dashrag.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah.
So your question, what's the answer? You said what's the...
How to be?
No, you said...
what's the benefit?
What's the benefit?
Okay. to have understanding that there is no self from the beginning to the end, from not understanding and begin to understand until one becomes Arahata or Sotapanna.
So it's not so much about wanting to become a dasrag. It's about understanding, and the dasrag will arise by itself.
Yeah.
But then again, not everyone was a dasrag. Not all Aryans. We're talking particularly about Sariputta.
As long as there's still kilesa, can there be dasrag?
No.
Because one still have akusala. So dasrag is not akusala.
And anybody without kilesa is a dasrag?
I think that it has to be understood. How long?
How long?
Forever or just from time to time?
Oh, I see. So you can be a dasrag only certain times, special
Only
times.
as long as there is still kilesa.
But for the Arahat, any time, because no kilesa, no clinging to self at all, no conceit.
So he says that dasrag all the time.
All the time, yeah. But for us, just moments of understanding. It's like a dasrag. And the expression that Alberto said he heard was about how you were there to pay respect to the dasrag. What do you mean by pay respect to the dasrag?
Don't you pay respect to the Buddha?
So pay respect to those who are like the dasrag, yes.
But I thought it meant that this particular place was,
Okay, I'm not sure.
or it may be somewhere that associated with Sariputta.
And what about the other Arahatas?
But he's famous for being a dasrag. So I think the question is, what was special about him?
All Arahatas have no kilesa.
Sariputta.
Not just Sariputta, who didn't have kilesa at all.
It's not about the place, and the only reason we mention Sariputta is because the sutta about being like the dust rag that anyone can trample on and so on is one that Sariputta gave, and he talked about it, that's all, but it could be any Arahat talking about it.
So being without kilesas is a synonym for dasrag?
So the idea that like a dust rag, people step on you, bother you, annoy you, whatever they do, it's not going to spoil the sense of the equanimity.
Yeah.
So that's
Sometimes when I think about enlightenment, I think that it's something that I want to get. But when I think about a dasrag, I'm not very sure.
And when we have the idea we would like to become enlightened, or we would like to be without kilesa, then no dust rag at those moments, because it's all about I again.
And when we think about becoming a nobody, not so sure again.
I think for the word Pacheturi or dasrag is like it shows the difference between an arahata. It shows a difference, large difference between a arahata and a puttajanas.
Hung and Huon was saying that their number one question is because of some different ideas in the group, and a topic that they discussed recently in Holland was about monks. So would you like to introduce it, Hung?
Yes. You may know that we had a short discussion with Kunina last week at her house and about the monkhood life, and there a lot of different idea about the monkhood life. And one person in our group, he said that he pay respect for all monks, even the monk do it a wrong way, but he still pay respect to the monk. But the other person says that if he knows the monk did wrongly, so he cannot pay respect to that monk. So I mean that one action from the monk could be conditioned to any kusala or akusala thinking, akusala consideration about that. So can you elaborate more about what is right consideration? Yes.
Do you know who's the monk in Dhamma Vinaya? Or you don't mind whether that monk doesn't follow the Vinaya at all and no understanding?
See. Who knows the danger of the...
Otherwise, you'll pay respect to everyone, not just the monk who is not in Vinaya. Would you? What's wrong if we don't pay respect to such a monk who's not according to Vinaya? Nothing wrong. Otherwise, that monk would think that he is worthy to receive such respect. And he will never follow the Vinaya more and more, again and again.
I think there are 2 points. One point is that the true or deep meaning of bhikkhu is the one who sees the danger in samsara. So anyone here can be bhikkhu in this sense because of seeing the value of developing understanding. And when we talk about paying respect to the Sangha, the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, actually it's paying respect to those who have followed the teachings, especially the Aryans who have become enlightened and shared the teachings, and it is because of their wisdom that we're able to hear the Dhamma today. And the other point is that what I've always learnt from Ajarn is that rather than thinking of individual monks and how much kilesa they have and whether they follow the Vinaya, which will lead to a lot of disturbance and maybe, as she just mentioned, they're not worthy of paying respect. But like the first friend said, actually when one pays respect to the order of monks, one doesn't think of the individuals. One pays respect to the order as a whole. So when it's Sanghadana, it is to the order of monks, to those who have shared the Dhamma and followed the Vinaya, so no need to think about the individual. So even if one is paying respect at a temple to a monk who may or may not have good Vinaya, actually in one's mind one is paying respect to the order as a whole. So I think of anyone who is following and understanding the teachings, and if I'm thinking about those who are ordained, I think about the order as a whole that follows the Vinaya. No need to think about the problems with individuals, because otherwise it just leads to akusala citas.
Kun Sarah, so by your explanation, it says that the two people are actually recollecting different objects. The two people are recollecting the different objects. One is paying respect to the Sangha, but one actually understand the actions from that is a result of a kusala citta, and an actions that is a result from action from a akusala citta. So if it's panya will also see rightly whether it's from an kusala or akusala. So wouldn't it be better, as Thanajan said, to know akusala for akusala and kusala for kusala, just precisely what it is. I think Kun Saras make a good point there, is that it depends on what object do the person have when they were paying respect.
And in the end, it comes back to our own citta at that moment, because if we're in front of the monk who is not behaving properly and there's dosa, there's no paying respect to any meaning of bhikkhu at that moment. So this is why I think better to think of the order as a whole, or think of anyone who has followed the teachings with kusala cittas.
Kun Sara, so what do you think is a way? So if we might not be able to show our contempt or anything, and also any arising dhammas will be by anatta. But if we see a monk that does not behave correctly, how do you think we can help such a person, or how do you think we can help him reflect? Do we talk Dhamma to them, or do we ask them questions, or what do you think is a skillful thing to do?
It depends on whether they have any interest to hear. Like when we're in Vietnam, some monks attend, and from our part, we will only behave appropriately. Like we wouldn't give them money, and we wouldn't have them seating in the wrong place. So we will do our best, and if they're interested to listen to Dhamma, then we will explain about the Dhamma. So it just depends on the occasion and whether there's an opportunity to help, because in the long run, unless they have an interest in understanding the teachings, their behavior won't change. So it has to come from the understanding.
And what will you do if you see a monk on the street?
I would not pay attention, Ajarn.
Would you like to help him?
To help him?
Like just said.
But I think it's very hard to help somebody who, first of all, you don't know, and you don't, yeah. And they need to have. I think you can help somebody who asks you for help, but if they're not asking you for help, I think is counterproductive. It's the yeah, it's not a good idea.
I think the only way to help anyone is to understand and study by oneself, and then if there's an opportunity, like Kun Sara said, we share what we understand. But it's only through understanding that we can help anyone. So we just need to understand both the study and genuinely study both the Dhamma and the Vinaya, so that if there's an occasion that we can help anyone through conversation, it's possible.
And not just that monk, anyone.
And it's the same with anyone. There's an opportunity, but it depends on their interest, whether they would like to hear. If someone, even a lay person or even one's family member, if they don't want to hear or not interested, then that's their life. They're different accumulations.
And just the question is, when because when I have listened to Ajarn for since the beginning that Ajarn teach about this Dhamma, and I just learned, and I had a very big surprise what I have found in monks, what they taught at, in fact, up to now, it's nothing at all. Well, I cannot say at all, but what they try to tell us up to now is, most of them, I can say that I could not say even 90% or 99%. It's wrong. It's so simple. It's just try to take the Buddha teaching in the way that just to practice, and And I was so surprised and I was so disappointed, you know. And yes, I can say, and now when we talk about it, Kuson and Akusology, and even when I saw that, I realized that in my mind, and it's very difficult to analyze myself whether it's mana or not.
Expectation.
Voilà, yes.
Expectation and disappointment. That's
yes.
Because
and
we think it should be like this, but
why they're so. It's completely different from what Ajarn taught now, with follow the way of the Buddha, try to explain to us of anicca, dukkha, and anatta, and almost nobody talked about it or emphasized that point, and try to tell us to study step by step. Nobody in this country, anyway, that as what I have learned up to now anyway. So it's difficult now when we see some, you know, in the media that they distribute about the thought of other old Ajarn or Luang Po or Luang Ta or whatever, and then immediately, you know, you in your mind you say, that's wrong, you know, automatically. So, and in the meantime, I ask myself whether is that my mana or not, you know, just to say that I was right. I judge that I'm right, what I listened to Ajarn. I don't know what I explained. Is that
different citas, different moments.
Well, exactly.
And it comes back to one's own citas at that time. Is there any understanding or compassion, or is there annoyance and disturbance because they say the wrong things? So different citas.
And is it necessary to know the exact nature of the mental state? Because that seems to be, in a sense, kind of selecting something that one wants to know about.
Probably they didn't know either, or they didn't know how to tell us or to teach us. Probably that what we try to forget about it. And anyway, up to now, I try to concentrate in the way that I think it was right. That's all, so that I can avoid the akusala.
I think it's natural to react in the way you describe when one hears someone explaining the Dhamma wrongly, or what we think is wrongly. But that is because one still has accumulated unwholesome tendencies. Otherwise one wouldn't feel the need to, as it were, judge or compare what is being spoken by someone else to what we understand ourselves. But it's a natural accumulated tendency, so nothing can be done about it.
If we concentrate or try to avoid unwholesomeness, what kind of citta is that?
Exactly, exactly.
It's the self again, not wanting to react like that, not wanting to be disturbed. It's not the understanding of Dhamma as anatta.
So now, Ajarn, we have two things. One, the monks behaving in accordance to Vinaya, and one having right understanding. So now there's a situation where a monk may be able to follow the Vinaya with self, and that's also not right, isn't it?
So in order to be a monk, it's just follow the Vinaya, but there must be the understanding, and understand one's own accumulation, whether one would study in the as not monk or as monk.
Yeah, there is very definitely misunderstanding about the Vinaya among the monks, because they come up with interpretations in order to, for instance, give you an example. The Vinaya says don't handle money, but they say, oh, okay, I can handle a credit card because it's not real money, but it represents money, but they interpret it so that they can handle a credit card. Okay, so this is the problem, and it boils down to, as Ajarn says, total lack of understanding of the rules, of the Vinaya rules, and so This is what's happening all the time. Okay, it's okay. For instance, the Vinaya says you don't, if you ride in a cart or some kind of transportation, you can't drive it yourself. Somebody else has to drive it along. You know, so there's some things they follow very closely and other things they don't follow very closely. So it depends on their own kilesa, what they want and to follow and what they don't want to follow. Or they reinterpret the rules to say, oh yeah, but we're not interpreting it that way. So so credit cards are not really money. No? So this is what they do. Yeah.
So Betty, what you're saying is that that kind of situation cannot last. A person who believes he can follow the Vinaya strictly but does not have right understanding of teachings, because he will end up breaking the rules and reinterpreting the rules.
It certainly means that the monkhood, the Sangha, is in trouble, and there needs to be reforming. But I think they're the only ones that can reform it. I'm not sure anybody else is able to reform it, unless the person who's doing it really has understanding.
And Hung, you said that you like to hear more about Ajarn's comment that here is a temple. Yes. So would you say?
I like your comment.
Anywhere where this understanding is a temple.
That the comment that Ajarn said the other day when at the end of the talk, Ajarn told me, so you're not going to a meditation center anymore. And I asked Ajarn, is this a meditation center? And Ajarn said, no, this is like a wat, but without monks. only with people who see the danger of samsara.
But also only momentarily, right, Ajarn? Because we definitely don't have the accumulations to live in the actual what and follow the Vinaya. We're lay people who can at best keep the 5 precepts. So maybe the reference to what is only when there's panya and not otherwise.
We don't have to take it too seriously, but we can think of it as our temple. And Alberto's, sorry.
Yes, I think what Kun Sarah is trying to put in here is that whenever there's understanding of Dhammas, at that moment, there's already a kusala mind with panya. So there's no need of having to go anywhere, but at that place is already a place of practice.
That's the what.
It's a suitable place. And anywhere where there's understanding. And Alberto had another question which I think ties in with this about the Buddha and paying respect to the Buddha. And Ajarn asked him a question before. Maybe you can repeat the question she asked you before.
I remember in Poland you asked what Buddham Saranam Gacchami could be said in English. And we all said, I go for refuge to the Buddha. And then I've looked up a bit the commentary, and it has much deeper meaning to the word both refuge and gacchami, and so it says that the refuges can be Lokuttara. There is a Lokuttara refuge and there is a Lokiya refuge, but both are they both need panya to.
Can you speak louder?
Louder, yeah. Sorry, my yeah, the question. Can you explain a bit about refuge and going for refuge?
So what it's meant by having the Buddha as refuge?
Having the teaching, what the Buddha taught, having understood what the Buddha taught.
It does mean that you don't understand the teachings and you pay respect to the Buddha and has him as refuge at all.
What he said that you couldn't catch, Betty, was that he was in the commentary when it talks about refuge, it refers to lokuttara, refuge at moments of enlightenment. At those moments there is the direct realization of nibbana, and it also talks about lokiya, mundane refuge, so at moments of insight, at moments of understanding, at those moments there is refuge in the Buddha because of that understanding. I think that was the point, was it, Alberto?
When there is the understanding of the teachings, it's not because having Buddha as refuge, otherwise we don't have any understanding at all.
Also, is that also the refuge of the Dhamma rather than the Buddha? And is there a difference?
Because who's the Buddha? Without understanding, that person cannot be the enlightenment. So it means that you would like to follow his path because nobody can show you that path at all.
And how are we to understand the refuge in the Sangha?
Sangha here means the enlightened person, it, Lokuttara Citta, no matter monk or not monk.
So, in the context of the three refuges, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, we know that the Dhamma, when there's understanding of the Dhamma, there's seeing the value of Dhamma, and there's appreciation of the enlightenment of the Buddha who taught the Dhamma. And then in that context, what does Sangha mean? It means, as you say, the enlightened. So
those who have followed the path, those who have become enlightened, who have understood the teachings.
But we isn't it enough just the Buddha and the Dhamma?
What about those who have followed the teachings and become enlightened and through their wisdom, enlightenment?
How does that add to
how, through their wisdom, how would we hear the teachings now if it was not through the Sangha, through those who had become enlightened, following the teachings and shared it and passed it down?
Also, another aspect in Sujin is that without the Sangha, the Buddha cannot be a perfectly enlightened Buddha. He's arise in this world to show the Dhamma, and his Dhamma leads people across to the far shore. It's because of the existence of the Sangha that the free gems is complete. This path is possible, and it's only through understanding. That's, I think, is another aspect that comes from.
I think it can be also because once you become Ajarn, you have to be a monk, you have to join the Sangha to keep on.
But this here means Arya Sangha.
Yeah, I'm saying that's what I'm saying. At the time of the Buddha, when there were Ajarns, after becoming Ajarns, they had to join the Sangha to keep on being alive. Otherwise, they wouldn't. Might be so
See, I'm not questioning the consequence of the Buddha having come and taught the Dhamma. There must be Sangha, but I'm just asking what our attitude towards the Sangha, you know.
Because once you become enlightened, you need the Sangha.
No, I understand what Sarah just said. She said without the Sangha we wouldn't have the teachings now.
I think also it's also like a different. You are not the same as you were before enlightenment. So Sangha means the community of Aryans, and it's needed to become Arahant. And
one's paying respect to the great wisdom of those who were able to listen and understand the teachings, like we were talking about the enlightenment of Sariputta and the other disciples who were able to understand, who had such great wisdom and understanding, and through that great wisdom and understanding we're able to benefit.
And we're talking about the 3 gems, right? So those 3 are.
So sorry, just for this question, can you share with us normally when you think of the Sangha and when you think of the refuge of the Sangha, how do you, what kind of recollections that occur for you?
3 gems, not only one.
I think people recollect according to their understanding, and that's as much as the recollection can be. So if to the extent one understands and appreciates the Dhamma, that is going to be the basis of the recollection, and every person will be different according to their way of thinking and considering.
For me, excuse me. Excuse me. For me, I think one who has the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha as their refuge has to be sincere to study his teaching. Because if they say just Puttang Saranang Gacchami or respect to the Buddha without study the Buddha's teaching, I think is not Trayasarana.
Or just prostrating in front of the altar and praying to Buddha, or repeating and chanting in Pali, it's quite meaningless if there's no understanding.
Yes, because some people pay respect to the Buddha for I want to be a billionaire or I want something from that.
But true respect only comes from studying and understanding the Dhamma. That's true respect, right, Dhammajan?
I wonder if we're thinking here of paying respect in terms of some kind of recitation. Respect is momentary, I think, as and when understanding arises naturally. It can be at any time. But if it's done as a formal recitation, say at a particular time of the day, then this is quite a different thing altogether.
So I think we can conclude that taking refuge is not about just by saying the words or wanting to do something. So it must be through understanding that one takes refuge.
Nothing to do with the circumstances or appearance, in other words.
And why Lokuttara is distinguished from Lokiya? Because once you're Sotapanna, then it's firm.
Yeah.
And so what do you think, John, about when like having certain times a day when you will you would read a book of Dhamma, or you would listen to the Dhamma, like schedule yourself, like at 5 o'clock every day I will read one chapter or something like that.
Depends on the thinking behind it and the expectations, if any. There's nothing wrong with having one's day ordered to make sure that there's time for everything, a little bit of time for everything, in principle. So we can't say for sure.
Like discussion at 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock every day we do the editing of recordings, or so sometimes it's convenient to have an arrangement. Just depends on the motive.
And is that not Dhamma? Is that not Dhamma?
Is it not Dhamma?
Doing like that?
Well, again, it depends on the
understanding.
On the understanding, yes.
If you think that it has to be done with the idea of self, it's not right understanding.
For example, if one had the idea that the more time one spent reading the Dhamma, then the more understanding there was going to be, that would be the wrong kind of thinking, wouldn't it?
And talking about special times and places, and there was some discussion, I think, amongst some of the Vietnamese friends about meditation and chanting, and some like to go to special places, even some who have listened to us for quite a long time and seem to have quite good interest, but they still like to go to, I think you said, a comfortable place where they have a practice and good food. And would you say a little more?
Okay. Yes, many of our friends prefer to go to the special place, like very nice people with the good food, and they have a good time with them, and such kind of meditation center. So I know what's motivation for them to go to that place.
Is that right? Is that right?
Let's ask, is it right to right to go?
Right to go?
Mm-hmm. You can just maybe say it to Ajarn.
When I start listening to Ajarn, at first I cannot. There's just some certain accumulations that even me myself, I still have those tendencies. But the more I listen to the correct words, the more I understand that Dhamma cannot be studied with our idea of self. We cannot force some kind of practice without the conditions. So the more I listen, the more firm we become in the understanding, and we understand that if the moment of understanding arises, there's no stopping. There's no need to go to a different place. It can happen right here, provided if there's conditions. So the more I listen, the more firmer become. We can know for oneself that we don't need to go to any other place. But the place where there's listening and there's consideration of the Dhamma, there's already practice, but not by the idea of self, but by conditions, and because Dhamma is Dhamma. And I think it's only way for those that been to meditation centers before, and then by studying and by understanding that they slowly let go, not by themselves, but let go through understanding of not needing to go anywhere and just understanding it as it is.
I think this also relates to the idea of people say they want to be alone, or go to some place where they can be alone. And so we discussed this, I think, last week, and we talked about this idea of what does it really mean to be alone. It basically means to be where not alone literally, but alone in the sense that the contemplation is occurring, and perhaps if the conditions are right, understanding is arising, then that is aloneness, no matter where you physically are.
But can Hun say why she thinks it's right to go to meditation center?
It's hard for her to speak in English, so I think Hung needs to speak for her.
Bạn hỏi là em có thấy là đúng khi mà đến meditation center?
I think no.
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 Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought you said
But almost my friends practice meditation and chanting. Yes. So I wonder, I want to share them about listening Dhamma, but I cannot. Yes, I cannot. Yes. And sometimes I invite them listening Dhamma, but they not understand, and they said that it's not Dhamma, it's not Dhamma. So I cannot do that. Yes.
But the attachment to their
yes.
idea or their idea of practice as Dharma is so strong that they don't wish to hear another idea. Or even like some friends you mentioned who may have listened quite a long time, but there's still so much attachment to being in the center with sitting quietly and following certain rules or being with other people, living like that. So even if they have some idea that maybe it's not right, but still there's attachment to that way because it's their habit. So all one can do is talk about dharmas like seeing now is seeing anywhere, anytime, no need to be in a special place. And I think Hung, you said that you found it interesting the other day when we were talking about the different kinds of viveka,
yes.
seclusion, and you wish to hear more about that.
Yes, I'd like to hear more about the viveka. What reality of the viveka?
No desire, no attachment, no kilesa.
No kilesa. Oh, it means that it's sati with panya? Oh.
At moment when there's no akusala, do we have to know what's there? Sati or something else?
Not now. If there's no akusala, if it's kusala, sati must be there.
Yes.
So if for the friends who go to the meditation center with attachment because they like it and they sit quietly focusing on breath or whatever, they think this is solitude or seclusion or viveka, but actually it's attachment and wrong understanding, no viveka at all at those moments. Even though they're physically alone, viveka cannot be with attachment.
And there's still an idea of selecting particular objects for study or for awareness, because obviously the difference between daily life and being in a meditation center is one is devoting a period of time to having awareness, and that means, okay, now it's time for awareness practice. So one is selecting the object at that time.
I usually offering for the monk and the student, yogis.
She offers food to the monk
and the yogis. So everybody said that you are attachment and loba. So I think this is kusala. Offering is kusala, and I do that continuously. But sometimes I think they says that right. Sometimes I think it's kusala. I continue. So I think it's this accumulate. Yeah. Are you comment this?
Would you like to think or listen to the teachings?
Listening. Yes.
Could you just explain what Boon was saying about when she gives,
yes.
makes offering to the monks?
She often she has an accumulation to offering the foods to the monks and yogis in the meditation center. So at first time I'm not agree with her because maybe meditation center is not right place to get a more understanding about the Dhamma, about the teaching, but she prefer to go and she like to offering the foods. But some of our friends not yes, right? Yeah, not agree with her doing. But now, as more understanding the Dhamma, we understand that her accumulation is the kusala. This, but we don't know exactly.
So your friends wanted to discourage her from going to the meditation center to offer food.
Yes.
So it may be kusala when she's offering the food, and this is out of kindness. But when there's more understanding, then I think no interest to go to that center. One will offer the food to in other ways, or have the kusala in other ways, because one won't be inclined to go. But it doesn't mean there can't be kusala.
But you do appreciate that your friends who are trying to discourage you from giving are actually trying to point out to you what kusala really is, right? So if you end up giving with attachment, then that's not giving. So actually they're just trying to help you.
I think that they're just pointing out that it's better not to go to the meditation center. That's the point. It's not. They're not saying that giving. They're not talking about whether the giving is with moments of attachment, but they're just saying better just stay away because there's so much wrong view and wrong practice. So why be in the environment where one's listening to it, and otherwise one thinks one has no interest. One is just interested in understanding Dhamma in daily life. But then why go there?
When I listen a lot to Ajarn, among the words that I first attracted my mind, my citta very much, is that we were so alone, in fact. In reality, that we so alone, and I found that profoundly that it's true and it's real, it's a reality. And then when we talked about practice, the way that when among the other words again, Ajarn mentioned right at the moment when we breathe in and out. It means that our life is just short like that. So in fact, we can practice each moment, even more than a moment, because everything arise and then it's gone rapidly. I think as long as you have sati comes to you after listening, and I think that's the right way, because when we start to talk about period to discuss, that's another period or purpose to discuss among us, for example. But when I cannot say apply, but in fact when you listen it turns to be naturally in your life, but for me anyway, because we see everything that we see, we sit, we put our feet everywhere, we touch everything right at the every time. We do something every time since we open our eyes. That I think it's so difficult, of course, to understand deeply and to understand and then profoundly and rupa and nama and for example. But anyway, the rough thing that we can feel or we can consider, I think the most difficult thing I've learned to go to practice somewhere is probably just a condition to avoid, to have a rest, your mind, your body, for example. But the real practice, in French we call entre guillemets, it means, if we could say that word. In fact, just right at the moment, I think that it's so important. And you touch, in the morning, you drive, of course, sati will not come every time, but when you touch, but it's too late anyway. When you feel it, it's gone already. But it came through your mind, although it's just to understand very, what do you call, roughly of what you listen, what I listen. But I could feel that's the reality. And we cannot, in fact, when we talk about this and that, but when we face with a certain specific situation, in fact, that's the way your Dhamma come through you, either akusol or kusalajit or whatever. So that's very challenging yourself. There is self, of course, always. I think that is what I have found is so, I could say this so important, it's so precious to find that. And what else?
The point is that going to the meditation center, it's not a rest. If it was just a rest, like going to the beach or the forest, no problem, have a rest.
Yes,
the point is that it's the place or the purpose of going is to follow the wrong path, to develop wrong understanding. The other day there was a Thai gentleman who came to visit Ajarn, and I couldn't understand because it was in Thai, but Roti kindly told me bits that were going on. And at the beginning, I think he was talking about his breath, his practice, being aware of breath. And from Roti explained to me, Ajarn was just saying, it's the idea of self at those moments, because it's something. Is that what he said? Yes.
But I think we are not alone, because
Ajarn said that if he was seeing breath, there was a self there.
If I can venture a guess, he probably didn't quite understand how that was the idea of self. That's probably what he didn't understand.
Can we say that anyone who goes to meditation center understands the teaching? Not at all.
No. Actually, they are destroying the teaching. So to offer things to people in a meditation center means to offer things to people who are destroying the Buddha's teaching.
And if one thinks, well, one's just going and it's just kusala, but why go? Why go to the place of wrong view and the place that's destroying the teachers? What do you think, Hun?
But I think Hun said that she had friends there, right? She goes to meet some friends also.
She has friends at home, she has friends in the city, she has friends in many places, she has many, many friends. So why go to see the friends that are destroying the teachings? Yes. Why help those friends in particular? And those monks in particular? Yes. Loba, yes. Loba and maybe some old habit, because maybe even though one knows it's not right, but still there is that behavior that's motivated by that wrong view that's been accumulated in the past, so one still likes to do it. Like our friend who said he listens and he knows it's not necessary, but it's still his habit to sit cross-legged and focus on the breath, and those lingering habits from one's past wrong view, very tenacious.
Right, I think we can tie this very nicely to the dust rag, because dust rag has no benefit at all, but just to think of going to do something for what benefit, that's already wrong understanding.
And it's for who? For oneself, because one would like to be the person who is calmer or the person who has better concentration. So actually it's, for me, it's not the understanding with detachment of whatever is conditioned, which is the dust rag, not minding what happens to one, not thinking of oneself.
Could we say people who go to do meditation is doing with Tanha, Mana, entity? Yes. People who go for meditation, they, because of the Tanha, Mana, entity. My sister is going in October for the whole month down south.
I think
I also come here to the foundation with Tanha, Mana, and Ditthi, but I find that what we discuss here gives me an opportunity to become aware a little bit about Tanha.
Expectation. Also, Tanha and Mana and Ditthi. Yeah.
Thinking, if one thinks when one's here there will be understanding, or if one would like to know exactly how Ajarn thinks about the Sangha so one can do the same. Actually, clinging can come in any time.
Yes. What I think what you're going to say is that, in a meditation center there's no way that you can develop any understanding, right?
No, what I'm saying is that, you could put it that way, but what I'm saying is that you're saying you come here with Tanha, Mana and Ditthi with the understanding that you're still a Putujana, you still have those kilesas, so it can arise anytime. Whereas the difference is when you go to a meditation center, you don't know that, you don't see that. You actually follow Tanha, Mana and Ditthi, believing that it's taking you to
the wrong path is taken for the right path.
I think the worst thing of going Samnak Padibat is ignore the Buddha's teaching. And many people try to say to anyone who interested in Buddhism, you don't need to study the Buddha's teaching at all, just practice. I think it's the worst.
That's some kind of meditation center, but there are other kinds of meditation centers where they study a lot of Abhidhamma and a lot of Pachaya and everything.
But without right understanding.
Yes, because it's very hard to understand.
Because I think if you have right understanding in Abhidhamma, you don't go anywhere. But you have right understanding to understand whatever appears right now. And I would like to talk about being alone. I think we are not alone because we are always with Lopa until Arahat. Yes.
What about at moments of understanding? At moments of understanding, is there seclusion? Is there aloneness? Like now, as Roti said, there's a lot of attachment when we calm, a lot of ignorance, but moments of understanding. So is there viveka at seclusion
yes.
at moments of understanding?
Yes, at that moment. If you have right understanding.
But for those moments, yes.
Yes.
And the point about the viveka that you asked about before was what we were discussing before. So any moments of understanding of reality, like now there may be moments of understanding amongst all the lobha and ignorance. So at those moments it is viveka, it is seclusion of the citta viveka. And the kaya viveka that we were discussing is, in addition to citta viveka, for those who live alone in a quiet place, like Mahakassapa, with right understanding, in addition to citta viveka, there is kaya viveka. But before the Buddha's time, people just thought living quietly in the forest or being in the cave was viveka. That's not viveka, because it has to refer to the citta. It has to refer to the citta that is free from kilesa, the citta at that moment with understanding. So if we go and rest for an hour on our own without people around and there's no understanding, it's not kaya viveka. But if while being alone at that time there is understanding, it is kaya viveka as well as citta viveka. Yes. And then the third one refers to moments of insight and enlightenment, upadi viveka.
Yeah, also to answer Roti when saying that you came first here with Akusala. But I remember...
Not first. Every day.
Yeah, these are the... I remember Ajarn last Thursday saying how Akusala can condition Kusala by Pakatupanisa Pachaya. Do you remember that? And she was saying that maybe we come here by Akusala, but that can be a condition for Kusala. That's the only way by which Akusala can condition Kusala.
She even gave the example, if you go to the meditation center with wrong view and attachment, but it may be that even so one is so determined to find the right way that somehow one reads the right book or hears the right point, so the akusala can be conditioned for kusala even there, or there can be, even though one may go with some lurking wrong understanding, but it can be a condition for kusala when helping friends. So yes, conditions very intricate.
But Ajarn, this sounds like a long story. When
life is so long.
Whatever, to just explain, like, oh, you can come here with akusala, and that can be a pakatupanisya pacha. But isn't it pakatupanisya pacha also in the moment?
But we don't talk just about today. We also talk about eons and eons ago too.
And another question of Roti's, to lead into it, is related to the fact that we say, like for those who go to the meditation center, it's wrong view of self. But you have the point you wanted to bring up about how Ajarn said to you in the discussion in the hospital that actually everything was with self, but it's not quite clear because we know not every citta is with the wrong view of self.
Oh yes, yes. Ajarn was saying one day that that everything we do it with self. Like right now, I feel that it's me who is talking, and I feel that it's me who is sitting, but at the same time, one day they explained that that wrong view does not arise every moment.
Does not arise, but it's there.
But it's there, right?
So when you just try to explain yourself, maybe it arose, but otherwise if you would have just talked something else about some other topic, it may not be there.
But for example, sometimes, well, every day I'm doing the things that I do in my daily life.
It's not always there.
But then there can be a moment when I say, oh, now I feel that it's me.
And then again, it has to, only Panya knows, right?
There are conditions to have such moment, otherwise there cannot be such thinking.
Like for example, I'm talking on the microphone, and then there can be a moment when I see, oh, I feel like it's me who is talking.
But it's still I.
Ah?
Yeah.
The I
and
is feeling that it's me.
You think that sometimes you don't have the idea of I, but actually it's there.
Yes, I think that's right. So even when we're not doing something particular, there's always I versus the rest of the world. And there's that person and that person too. And there's that object.
And it's not just latent tendency. Lopa is there, unknown.
So,
but the question is whether it's ditthi or not.
Yeah.
So one needs to know a bit about the characteristic of ditthi in order to because it's difficult to know when loba, plain loba, when it's plain loba, when it's ditthi, perhaps. So unless one has a better understanding of the difference of the characteristics of the two, it can't be known. So asking the question when I'm, as you did, I mean, it's not really possible for another person to give the answer.
Which question?
You were asking when I'm speaking on the microphone, and it's me speaking.
Oh, I didn't ask. It was not a question.
It was putting a circumstance or situation.
A circumstance that I might be speaking on the microphone, and then I realized that I have the feeling of being myself who's talking on the microphone.
It's not known when it's not sati.
It's not sati. Because
you just think.
It's thinking, yes. Well, but maybe the thinking is after.
Really? Now? No thinking?
Idea of I can even be with kusala citta. Doesn't have to be loba. Idea of I or me or you or whatever can be with kusala citta too.
But do you know how many moments lopa mula citta arises? So you just do anything without lopa?
Yeah, I think it's
that
almost
must
impossible.
Be, yeah.
Yes.
I think what's very valuable, and the one thing I think is valuable in coming here is that even if we were to know just a little bit about an akusala that is there, it's better than to go somewhere and hoping for akusala citta to happen. So at least in midst of all this akusala, I think there can be somewhere that starts to accept that we are actually in a total darkness, and it's just overwhelming.
Yeah, it's the lopa even right now.
So
when again, please. When
Ajarn?
It's lopa.
Right now, Ajarn.
When?
Now.
More exact. Yeah.
What exactly?
Even just move, see.
Yes.
Or even Immediately after seeing, after hearing. If there's no sati, then it's akusala.
This is what is meant by all the time. It's like lobha is arising instantly after seeing it. Yes. So ditthi, by all the time, it's meant it's there in the background. The tendency is there, ready to condition ditthi to arise any time, but it doesn't mean it's there at every moment arising.
But lobha is basically arising every moment, right?
At moments of seeing and hearing is the lobha.
Yeah, no.
At moments of kusala is the lobha. No. So just at moments of akusala and moments of dosa is the lobha. So when we say all the time, it doesn't mean at every moment.
So I think I kind of understand the characteristic of lobha clearer than the characteristic of wrong view.
You cannot. Because it's you. Only sati can understand this moment is not self, because it's such and such reality.
And actually, it would seem that when Roti is saying, I think I can, at that moment it's already arisen and you don't know.
What has already arisen?
Wrong view.
Not necessarily.
Oh, lobha. Just lobha.
Maybe just lobha. Maybe just lobha.
It may just be a manner of speaking. Manner of speaking. You can't tell what Roti's citta is at all.
Right. But it seems to be he's taking a little time considering between different moments and different experiences.
But what condition you're thinking?
Sorry, Ajarn.
What condition you're thinking?
My thinking. What conditions? Tanha, mana, and ditthi.
Can I bring up another...
not all at the same time.
Can I bring up another reply from our Polish friend who has the drinking problem, who has listened to Ajarn?
I think that he always have problem because he don't understand reality.
And he read what you said the other day, and it was quite straight and quite direct, and I transcribed exactly, so it was like tough medicine. And he says he would like you and any of us to excuse any of his offensive or arrogant words from time to time, because when he's drunk he can't help words that are said. Alcohol makes him Mara speak, not him. So this is just his apology, first of all. And he understands this I have to interpret the English. He understands what you were saying and about meditation or sitting and analyzing dharmas as not being the right way. He just said it because he thought it might help cure his problems, but I know there's a lot of ditthi in that, but he doesn't think ditthi is his current problem, because before he studied Dhamma for a long time and there was less and less wrong view, like an idea of body and mind and intelligent mind. I used to know the path a bit since there was less wrong view and more opportunities for understanding and kusala. My problem now, for at least the last 3 or 4 years, is I forgot the Dhamma. I don't understand anything, but I'm drinking far too much. That's why I asked you, Ajarn, because you're wise and I don't know what to do. Maybe you can help. What advice?
Not thinking about himself.
Right, that's a good way. Usually
but understanding the teachings of the Buddha. That's the only way.
I mean,
for all of us.
The words of the Buddha for everyone.
I mean, for all of us, I think we can appreciate that the main obstacle, main hindrance to right understanding is the wrong understanding of self. So it's not drunkenness, but wrong view, which is the real enemy.
And the other day when you said to him, oh, no understanding at all, actually at most moments of life, for everyone, it's like that, no understanding at all those moments of attachment and ditthi and preoccupied with oneself, no understanding at all. So one has to come back to dhammas, yes. Otherwise it's like this person's problem and this, but actually it's dhammas, just. And when we don't realize that when thinking about and talking about our problems, we think it's something useful, but actually it's all attachment, clinging to oneself.
But Ajarn, this is going to continue for a long time. There's doubt. I mean, if you're as Putujana, there will be doubt. No, I'm saying that so long as we are Putujanas, there will be doubt. There will be questions like what Lucas has put. I mean, when we have problems, then we want to fix the problem, and it's so much self, and we don't. The confidence in the Dhamma is not there when there's the idea of self.
And when you say to him, understand the teachings of the Buddha, you mean understand there are just dhammas, no this person, no that person, no I that so seems so important, just passing dhammas, each one is dukkha and not worth clinging to at all.
Because I thought that I read the emails a little bit, and I thought that he thinks that understanding Dhamma means to learn Pali, right? Wasn't that?
I think often people think that it means studying the text. We were discussing about the meaning of pariyati. People think it means learning what is in the book, working out the number of citas and cetasikas, studying Pali, but this isn't what Ajarn means by understanding the teachings of the Buddha. Like you said before, it's now.
Does the person who set up the meditation center have no understanding of the words in Tipitaka, but just the words, not reality?
Yes, many Pali experts set up meditation centers. Many people who can memorize the Tipitaka and Pali, but it's just the book knowledge.
It means that he doesn't have understanding of what he said.
So, Ajarn, it's not they have right understanding, they have a lot of wrong understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Lucas mentioned about Pali, didn't he? About studying Pali, right? Yeah. Yeah, like.
Maybe reading texts and studying Pali, both he mentioned. Yes.
Maybe you can give him another verse, like a parami. Parami. You see, they know that Bali, that you understand Pali, Thana Barami, Sila Barami, and Nekama Barami. Just three of that. But he's still drinking. What is that? He talk about the panya, no understanding anyway.
If he understood what is there at that moment as not self, it's all right. Because no one can condition any moment to be kusala. So it depends on understanding only.
So not just Barami is Dhamma, understanding what Dhamma is, and Dhamma is now.
And it's like the point before that I mentioned, if one thinks just by concentrating and avoiding akusala or by learning about parami and then there will be no drinking, it's not right, because one forgets about dhammas as being conditioned at those moments. So it depends on the accumulations, who knows, like now one may have studied and there may be understanding, next moment one may be angry, or anything can happen by conditions.
It is really difficult to get to that point, to arrive at that point, to try to analyze and to catch that
so
point.
it's not a matter of trying to analyze or catch, because that's the idea of self
that is
doing something. Yes.
Yeah.
So at this moment,
to try,
seeing this, hearing. So as soon as there's any idea of trying or doing, so if one thinks, oh, reflecting on the paramis and then no drinking, that's not understanding conditions at this very moment. So forget about trying, forget about doing anything to have less unwholesomeness, because it's all motivated by the idea of I can do, self, and then it leads to great disappointment when it's not the way one would like it to be. It's not the detachment with understanding from what is conditioned, no matter it's strong akusala.
Exactly.
Like before, when Ajarn said, even if she's angry, she doesn't mind, it's just conditioned Dhamma. Whatever arises, it's conditioned Dhamma. So even that moment when this strong attachment for alcohol is conditioned Dhamma. So this is why one has to be so very courageous to understand Dhamma. Otherwise, always self trying to do something, moving away from what is conditioned now.
So it's not so much as arriving any point, it's getting it right now. The first step has to be right, and when it's right, it's right.
Okay, yeah, I understand. Automatically, you mean?
Right is right. Right is right.
Right is not wrong. Right is right.
As soon as there's an idea of getting it right, it's I again, yeah. It's not just understanding what, like a lobha now. It's not a matter of waiting till there's no lobha. Even at this moment of lobha, there can be understanding, but not by trying or thinking of getting it right. Just by understanding dhammas, that's all.
Exactly. When we talk about the way of life of the monkhood, I question also myself what, in fact, in all monastery in Thailand, whether they have the course, I mean, to teach or even to discuss among them. I wonder also. I mean, or the one who know how to interpret, how to explain the Dhamma properly to the followers. I really doubt, and most, from my experience in up country anyway, even in Wat Pa, in a temple in the forest, or even in the whale, when they studied about the Pali, of course, the school of Dhamma. Normally they study in general, or I don't know, really, we don't know, we don't even know anything. I mean, as follower, as people who supposed to listen to the monk. When we saw the monk, we pay automatically the respect to them. But then, up to now, I wonder how.
The original purpose was to give up the supposedly what was considered the greatest attachments in life to family and so forth. Okay, that was the original purpose. However, and to get out of all of the kilesa that arises in society. But what they fail to realize is that they've just created a whole new society for themselves, which is the same kilesas is arising, everything the same as arises for us, arises for them. So what it's become is a lot of what is called silabata paramasa, meaning attention to ritual and just doing these things. What they talk about now, my son is a monk, so he's been a monk now for 25 years, And their days are, they're invited places to do tambun. They study. They study so that they can pass the various levels of the Pali studies, Bariyan, and so yeah, they pass that. They, but what I notice, what they study is more or less in an academic frame rather than having, let's say, a Dhamma discussion. They do not do that. Okay. I've asked my son why they don't do that. It's because there is you know, just like everybody else, just like every other ordinary human being, there's mana. You know, so they don't want to feel that. They feel that this way is they're not emphasizing the understanding of this monk versus some other monk. But in actual fact, by not discussing with each other, say having Dhamma discussions like we have, they're not allowing the conditions, say, for understanding to arise. And yet they, in some ways, they do, because they do a lot of reading, they do a lot of studying, they do, but then modern life has made it more complicated. They've got, you go to Wat Pawan, they've got really fancy computer setups over there, okay? Really fancy computer setup, okay. And they have, you know, now of course that should be used totally for the propagation of the Dhamma, and for instance, say having a discussion group, something like John and Sarah have, or things like that, okay? But there's the temptation, like there is for us. You know, you open YouTube or whatever, and some people are going to watch X, and some people are going to watch Y, and some people are going to watch things that are really awful, and some people are going to watch really things that are good, and you know, it depends on what they. So they're not above that. Okay, okay. So all right, and people give them too much stuff. I got my son's gutti is so littered with stuff, that people have given him. He's got, I don't know how many sets of robes that people have given him. So that when somebody, so he's very happy if somebody wants to come into the monkhood doesn't have a robe, he says, here, they have a robe. But it's, you know, it's a lot of it is people giving stuff to the monks because they think they're getting some kind of a benefit out of doing that. There is the benefit of giving, but when it's not done with understanding, when what's the point of, or the point of among lay people giving little Buddha amulets? I mean, my house is filled with Buddha amulets and Buddha images, because they all give these things to my husband all the time. I remember years and years and years ago, I asked Tana John, I said, how come there's no Buddha images around here? You know, and she
anyway,
said,
they have quite a few questions, so let's carry on. So,
can I just finish a second, and then you can go on. I know she loves to, but so it depends. It's all a matter of.
What did she answer when you asked when you asked her about why is there no Buddha images here?
What?
When you ask Ajarn why there are no Buddha images here?
Okay, you want the answer to that? Oh, sorry. Okay. So she said, what's the, you know, she said to me, what's the point of having them? We just accumulate all these things. What's the point of the images? So many people would then start giving you tons of these Buddha images, and you'd have a house like mine. It's full of Buddha images that people have given like to my husband, and you have the same thing would happen here. What's the point of it?
There were no images in the Buddha's time.
Well, that's true too. Obviously, there was no images in the Buddha's time either. That doesn't come until, after the Greek influence and so on. But
who wants to say something about the Buddha images?
Okay, so that's that's the life of the monks, and that's what it is. It's no different from us. It's not something that we can look down on, and it's not something we can look up to. It's something that's just another society that exists.
Ajarn, is there a duty, the monks have towards lay people when they give gifts that are in excess? What should the monk do or say?
The monk should study and follow that Vinaya. That's all.
So how does a lay person come to know that he's behaving wrongly to a monk?
That's why we try to let them know.
Well, mostly the
to
monks
help
don't.
them to understand.
The lay people should also study, right?
How many percent?
Yeah.
I mean, to study how should they treat a monk? Yeah.
Yes, how many percent?
Oh no percent.
But in answer to that question, I've asked my son this question and the same question. The monks generally feel that they're not allowed to say to a lay person who wishes to offer them something, unless it's totally against the Vinaya, unless it's very clearly stated in the Vinaya, this is not something you should have. They're not going to tell you, this is inappropriate, I have too many Buddha images, I have too many robes, please don't give me any robes. They're not going to say it.
It is very clearly stated in the Vinaya what the requisites for the monk are. There is the robes,
absolutely,
and the bowl, and the sewing kit, and the razor, and.
But then
so it's very clear.
And robes and everything. Well, that's why I giving the example of the robes.
And just the inner and out, how many robes. It's all very clearly the inner and outer.
Yes.
So they are not able to accept anything other than those.
Well, no, it doesn't say that.
So they just don't accept at that time. They can just say, "I have enough" or something.
I think that
what is meant by enough.
Like if they allowed only 3 robes, and someone is giving them the 4th.
If they don't receive anything more than that.
The reason
like if they're given money, they don't receive it.
Right. So they can at that moment inform the layperson that what they're doing.
Yeah, but they don't want to discourage. If the person has a genuine desire,
no, you can always
a genuine dana is arising in the person's mind. He says,
so give
I'd
them
love
the
to
Dhamma.
give this to the monk.
Give
the
them
monk
the Dhamma
is not
at that
say,
time.
Sorry, I can't accept that.
No, give them the Dhamma at that time. Just explain to them the Dhamma.
It's like receiving money or anything else. And according to Vinaya, they cannot receive. It's the same with excess robes or statues or computers or anything. They're not in a position to receive anything other than the basic requisites.
But Sujin, if the monk didn't understand, how can they just give Dhamma?
Oh, of course, that's what
right?
I know.
I mean, what Dhamma they can.
That's what they don't do. That's why I'm asking, if a good monk, how would he behave?
And to start with, they don't even know what Dhamma is.
What were you going to say, Peter?
I just would like to say about Pariyan, because people have misunderstand about studying Pariyan as studying Dhamma, but I don't think so, because studying Dhamma, Pariyan, because Pariyan, how can I say in English? But because people, when they think about Pariyan, they think of studying the Buddha's teaching, but I don't think so, because studying Pariyan is about study the language, Pali language, like grammar, vocabularies, how to translate from Bali to Thai or Thai to Bali, just that it doesn't mean you have right understanding in realities as the Buddha's taught.
But they also study, like one of the most important teachers in Burma who have very lots of meditation centers. They are very knowledgeable of the Tipitaka and Abhidhamma and everything. Yes.
Oh yeah, they can quote. They can quote text beautifully to you. You know, so this is what they do. This is what they do.
And are you interested in chanting? Because earlier someone mentioned chanting.
I don't think she meant she was interested.
No, but she talked about her friends, so I'm asking her.
Do you like chanting?
No.
I'm interested.
And when people, like your friends, when they are chanting, or even when monks are chanting in the temple, does it have to be with wrong understanding, or can it be with kusala, or what do you think?
Chanting is
she thinks that chanting is remind us about the Buddha teaching.
What about if it is in Pali and you don't understand the words? Can it remind us of the Buddha's teachings?
No.
Or if it is reciting of a text, for example, from the Abhidhamma that you don't understand, can it remind you of the teachings? Like here, the monks at funerals, they recite the Abhidhamma, but if there's no understanding of the meaning, can it remind one?
She agrees with that. No.
So only if the teaching that one hears or reads or speaks out loud is in a language or in a way that is possible to understand, does it remind one of the teachings? If it's just reciting in another language or just reciting without even reflecting on the meaning, then I don't think it reminds one very much.
Yes.
It can just be another ritual.
Before Kun Kampan came to foundation, he has got the highest level of Badian. Like he can translate anything. But he said before he came to listen toท่านอาจารย์, he didn't understand anything about Dhamma. But right now he listened to ท่านอาจารย์ and studied Tipitaka for right understanding in the Buddha's teaching. So Bali language that he has studied is very useful for now.
So, do you understand English?
A little.
Do you understand Dhamma?
Not well.
Even the Thai people do not understand Dhamma, but they know Thai, and some know Bali.
Peter, before we started, you mentioned this morning in the Thai session that you were reading a sutta from the Therigatha, and you summarized it as saying, and I'm sure this was just a very simplistic summary of saying, do what you say, like as an example, if you say you're coming here to the discussion, then you come here to the discussion, and you mentioned that this is sama patipati, or right understanding, but I don't see the connection. Would you explain what was meant?
I mean, when you have right understanding, it no I can do, no I, no self can do anything, but it's the function of right understanding, such as I see the benefit of listening of the Buddha's teaching, and I have said to you, I will come, and I came today. Yes, because of I have understanding, but it's still I. It's not right samma patipati like that, but it's the way to go to samma patipati, because it's barami.
Understanding the value of hearing and considering and discussing, yes. Because sometimes we use think of example like, oh, I say I'm going to come, so I'm going to come, or I say I'm going to phone my mother, so I phone my mother, but I don't think these are just conventional ideas, yes. That don't have anything to do with pati. Like you may say you're coming but not come because someone asks you to help with something else, but that, yes. Doesn't mean less pati or more, or so it's just conventional.
It
yes, it just depends.
Yes.
Sarah, I have a question. Could we understand, I didn't hear the morning's talks, but could we understand it as an aspect of panya is satcha? Could we understand it in that way?
Well, to me, satcha, like Intl.Dhamma was mentioning about the paramis, so to me, satcha parami means being truthful to this moment with understanding. So, for example, if ditthi is the reality, or wrong understanding, or dosa, for example, the truthfulness to understand what appears as it is, as Dhamma, not thinking of another reality or kidding oneself that it's kusala when it's akusala. So being truthful at this moment. I don't think it has anything to do with like the example, oh, I said I'm coming, so I'm going to come. This is just purely conventional idea of truthfulness.
Thank you. Would understanding also, and that's satcha barami, leads to one also be to have truthfulness in other aspects of their lives. For example, saying the truth, not lying.
Yes.
So it's that understanding that leads towards...
Yes, definitely, and to like not taking intoxicants because one really understands the danger and all kinds of kusala, but it doesn't mean that akusala will not arise, and who will never lie, only the sotapanna. So of course it leads to more kusala, but not by wishing or expectation or trying to put aside the unwholesomeness.
But also changing one's mind about what one is going to do doesn't necessarily involve any untruthfulness of any kind.
Like one may be on one's way to enter the room, and because, like Peter told me, he's coming, and then someone has an accident outside, so one goes to help them, so something more useful or anything can happen by conditions. So it has to come back to this moment, not the conventional situation, I think.
And Ajarn, it's not one or two or three baramis, it must be all.
Many. And how do you know that you are truthful or not?
Panya.
Knows what?
Knows the moment that
that you are truthful or not to the teachings, because you said that all dhammas are anatta. So study until it's so true to you that no self, no one.
When it's not true, know that it's not true.
And if you go to meditation, Senti, is that truthful to the word all dhammas are anatta?
And it's also similar with adhitthana, parami, or resolution. Like one may think conventionally, oh, I'm going to make a resolution every Saturday to go to the foundation, but it doesn't happen. But that has nothing to do with adhitthana, parami. Adhitthana, parami has to be at this moment, the determination because of the understanding, the value of understanding.
And even that moment, can it be right understanding? Anything.
So, more concerned about doing the right thing is having right understanding.
Understanding about no self at all.
I think there is no pattern for Sajja Barami, but it depends on that moment by conditions.
Even if one was coming here and one's friend said, let's go to the movie, and one goes out of lobha, but there can be such a parami even at that moment, truthful about the accumulation of lobha at that instant. There can be understanding then and there. So any moment, any place, and that is the viveka at that moment of understanding, not the place or time.
But just getting back to Tren's point, I think the teachings do talk about being a person whose word can be relied upon, being truthful in that respect. So there's a particular situation to the ordinary changing of mind, and one may have even told other people what one's plan is, but if it's just given as an indication of one's present thinking and intention, then there's no untruthfulness involved in changing one's mind. But of course, if it's a matter of giving one's word about something, that's different.
Yes, thank you, Kun Jonathan. My point is just that if it's understanding, it can lead to all other kusala actions. So, but I'm saying that even though someone could say that they determined to do this, and if they did do it, it doesn't mean that it's kusala. So, but it depends on just understanding or not understanding.
It may actually just reinforce the idea of self more.
But I think if
like when you say I'm going to do this and then you do it, like for example when you study the paramis, thinking that if you study the paramis you will stop drinking, it may actually happen, and so that may just reinforce the idea of self.
I think if we have
another word in like atta tipatai, atta atipatai, loka tipatai, and dhamma tipatai. When we talk, we have to realize what this is. We talk about atta or dhamma or loka.
This means one studying for oneself to gain something, to be a wise person, or is one studying for the benefit of the outer world and society, or is one studying just for the purpose of understanding Dhamma as it is? And this is the real kind of studying and understanding just for the sake of understanding, not for any benefit for oneself or for society, but just for the sake of understanding.
There's also studying a little bit of all with a little bit of all those purposes, right? Right, different.
And do you know about, sorry, I've forgotten your name. Meow. 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 Do you know about Kanti Parami or patience?
Yes.
So Kanti Parami means no matter what is conditioned at this moment, there can be patience. So even if it's strong akusala or no concentration as one would like it, no matter what arises, it's conditioned. And when there's understanding, there is patience with it. So the development of understanding needs a lot of Satya Parami and a lot of Kanti Parami, a lot of patience to be patient, whatever it is, as Dhamma, not self.
But I think the person who have strong right understanding always do what they said by understanding, not by self, but because they have right understanding of useful of truthfulness. So they do everything they said as much as they can, but it means only right things, not the wrong things. Example, if someone say I'm gonna kill some person, it's not Satya Parami. But if you know or you said you will do some right things. Example, study Dhammas or whatever. Right understanding will lead that person to do what they said. But it depends on condition, yes.
I think it depends on accumulations too. Like some people, whether they have no understanding of a lot of understanding, may always run late to appointments or forget details in the diary, whereas some people who have no understanding, very punctual and always do exactly what they say. If they say they're preparing a meal, they're there and can be relied on. So I think one needs to be careful thinking about the conventional situation.
Yes. I don't mean us, but I mean the person who really have strong right understanding. Example, Bodhisattva or like Maha Bodhisattva or Savaka Bodhisattva, because it's the nature of them always do what they said because they have firm, really strong right understanding. But for us, I think we don't have strong right understanding to do like that.
And doesn't it also depend on so many conditions?
But it depends on
like
conditions.
Before Ajarn was sick, many things she said she was going to do, many places she was going to go, many people she was going to, but then everything cancelled because of different factors. So we never know what conditions will bring.
I agree that.
That's why, as Jonathan was saying earlier, what's important is that at that moment.
Yes, at that moment. Like
what
I think
chitta is at
it's
that
the
moment.
function of right understanding will leads to.
No, not to worry about what it leads to, but at that moment, what the chitta is.
Otherwise, it may be expectation that with more understanding, I'll be more punctual, or if I say I'll write this article, I'm going to write it, and but actually accumulations are such that so many different conditions can.
I just think about like very high level of like Bodhisattva, but yeah, for realize that for me, I cannot do like that. Because I don't have that right understanding, but I still respect to the person who can do that. Example, Bodhisattva or anyone, because
Mahakassapa says he's going to lead the recital of the teachings at the council, then he will do it. But who knows? He may suddenly be killed by a tiger. Anything can happen. But,
So, what's the real Satya Parami?
Truthfulness of
the reality now.
right understanding.
Right. No matter what happened, Otherwise, there's no way or no one or no day to understand the teachings of not self. Because we care so much about oneself.
Would you like to do this today?